Hello, this is your friend Holland Timmins, otherwise known as the Connoisseur, and today we'll be looking at the complete Don Rosa Library, or at least as complete as I have it so far. Don Rosa emerged in the 80s as a duck artist and writer, and he spent the next 20 years writing Uncle Scrooge and Donald Duck comics. That is just as long as Carl Barks did it. And while he is often called Barks' successor, he denies it, which shows that, like all great artists, he is humble about his craft. Don Rosa is mainly known, his most popular and most enduring work is The Life and Times of Scrooge McDuck, which got an album release by his friend Tuomas Holopainen of Nightwish fame. So these books inspire a lot of people. The Don Rosa Library was collected by Fantagraphics, and as you can see here, it kept going, and they kept releasing them, as you can see. Let's take a look at the books, shall we? So, as you can see, this is the book Return to Plain Awful, and there are sketches and there are different stories. I'm going backwards so you can't tell what happens, but these are really great duck books, and I would highly recommend them. These are funny, these are full of adventure and history. I did take these to one of my history teachers in high school. This is Volume 2. This is Volume 1, The Son of the Sun. Anyway, I took them to my high school history teacher, and he thought they were really good stories full of historical information. Don Rosa did too his research, and I think that these are really good books to teach kids about history and entertain them. Obviously, so is Barks. These can't replace historical textbooks or documentaries, but they're a great introduction to history, as well as to the duck universe that Carl Barks created. Don Rosa is famous for doing sequels to duck stories. He's famous for doing sequels to duck stories by Carl Barks, at least. And as you can see, there is the professor from an earlier story. Just great art, don't you think? Anyway, I'd highly recommend these books. Let's look at another collection. As you can see, there's artwork on the back, which Don Rosa did. This is Treasure Under Glass. As you can see, it's just a lot of different really great artwork of the ducks and stuff. The ducks are really popular in Europe, as well as around the world. For some reason, they aren't as popular in America, but, we just like stories of violence and superheroes and masked vigilantes. For some reason, I don't know why. Obviously, I prefer the ducks. Interestingly enough, people only really know the ducks from the show DuckTales. I'm of an age where I grew up with DuckTales, so I could enjoy it. But I also was reading the Carl Barks stories and the Don Rosa stories, as well as other stories by other duck artists and writers. So I got to enjoy the comics as well as the TV show. Don Rosa doesn't really care about the TV show, I think, and I'm not sure if he despises it or not, but he has a sign at his booth that says, "This is not DuckTales," which he points to whenever people say it's DuckTales. Honestly, I've seen the new DuckTales. It's quite humorous. I did like the humor, but still, it still doesn't compare to either of the Don Rosa comics or the Karl Barks comics. The comics are just better. The source material is usually better than adaptations, always. And I would highly recommend that people check these books out. Some of these are out of print, though Fantagraphics says they will bring back some of the books that are out of print and reprint them. So there's still hope if you want to collect them, but you don't have the money for out-of-print books. This is The Life and Times of Scrooge McDuck, in case you're wondering. These are just fantastic books. Really fantastic story. It's actually my favorite book, even more so than The Silmarillion by J.R.R. Tolkien, because this book is essentially about the American dream. And I talked to Don Rosa saying, you know, this book really inspired me about the American dream, and he told me something really sobering. He essentially said the American dream as we know it is dead, which actually shouldn't have surprised me. The American dream essentially is dead, but I still think that in some instances it is still achievable. This depends on what you study and what you go into, but still, it's very hard to achieve, maybe even harder than it was to achieve, which may be why the American dream is dead. Anyway, I would, again, highly recommend this book series. Uncle Scrooge is perhaps my favorite character of all time. Not my favorite hero. My favorite hero would be Indiana Jones, who Uncle Scrooge and Donald Duck did inspire. George Lucas and Steven Spielberg admit that they took heavy influence from Karl Barks to create Indiana Jones. And if you see these stories and read them, you'll see where the adventure of Indiana Jones came from. Anyway, these are the comics. I would, again, check them out. These are some of the most popular comics in the world. I'm not sure about the numbers, but I think they outsell manga. These comics actually inspired manga as well. So if you like manga, you will definitely love the Ducks. A lot of people think that these are for little kids. Don't make that mistake. These comics are for everyone. They are highly entertaining, and I take these stories more seriously than I do superheroes. Not because of the Ducks, but because of the quality of the storytelling and the situations. I always found superheroes kind of juvenile, but these Ducks, which were intended for juveniles, they tell more adult stories than any superhero comic does, and so I would highly recommend these. Actually, these have essays these have behind-the-scenes essays on the different stories. All of these do. And finally, there are some rough sketches of the comics, but that's not what I wanted to show you. There are the Rosa archives, which are essentially about Don Rosa himself. And, yeah. Anyway, I'd highly recommend these books. And, anyway, this is your friend, the Connoisseur, signing off.